Good evening, everyone. Since it's 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Coos Bay City Council meeting order. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. First item on the agenda is public comments. We have a sheet that no one signed up for, but that doesn't mean you can't come up and make a comment if you would like. Preferably something that's not on the agenda. Anyone would like to come up and make a comment? No? Okay. Next item will be presentations. The Marshfield High School update by Harper Thompson. How are you this evening? I bet you have lots of things going on.
We do have lots of things. Also lots of stuff in my hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I just got back from the district office. I'm the student representative for the Coos Bay Educators Association, so we're in our fourth bargaining meeting, so it's quite fun to have waste on.
That's great.
Okay, hello and good evening, everybody, counselors, mayor. I'll first start off by saying happy almost daylight savings. As a track and field athlete, I look forward to leaving practice with at least a little bit of daylight. And walking up those steps today, it felt really weird because usually it's in the dark and there was actually some daylight, so that was fun. I didn't almost trip. So I'll get right into it. We'll start with some overall Marshfield updates and then move into some individual club updates. So as I'm sure you've heard, March 2nd through 4th, Marshfield held the Oregon OSAA 3A basketball tournament for, I believe, the 17th year in a row. This is such a big event for us because this event brings about over $1 million to our local economy. And as for the weekend, all hotels and restaurants in Coos Bay and North Bend areas are booked out. The gold went to Cascade Christian High School for the boys and Banks High School for the girls. Those were two pretty intense games. For the boys' game, at least, that was the most I've ever seen our gym filled, and I go to Marshfield, so that was quite amazing. Almost all the clubs were able to participate and volunteer throughout the weekend, with clubs working concessions, working security. Our CERT, a club at Marshfield, which I'm the president of, runs security every year for the tournament. Last year we got to do it twice. I think almost over 1,000 service hours were gained total with all the clubs and all of the volunteers staffing the event, so that was just really cool to hear. Let's see, and today, March 7th, Marshfield had the privilege of being a part of the Oregon Public Schools tour. This event was for all juniors and seniors. The afternoon consisted of a presentation from public universities from across the state of Oregon, including the University of Oregon, Oregon State University, Pacific University, Western Oregon University, and the Oregon Institute of Technology, along with a few others that I cannot name right off the top of my head. Also over the weekend, several Marshfield clubs helped host the Read Across America event, which I'm sure you're all aware of. At the Coos Bay Public Library, Marshfield Key Club, Marshfield Z Club, our National Honor Society, our Science National Honor Society, as well as our Marshfield Latinx Club. I worked this event and I was absolutely amazed at the turnout. That was not what I was picturing in my head, but in the best way possible. So on behalf of Marshfield Key Club, I cannot wait to work it again next year. Lastly, for Marshfield updates, through our 3A basketball tournament at the end of Friday, our Marshfield girls had an OSAA game and they won. So this weekend, they'll be heading to Forest Grove for the first round of the OSAA 4A basketball tournament. So go Lady Pirates. We'll be wishing them the best of luck, as well as sending a Rooter bus up Thursday and possibly Friday to pack a student section for us. Okay, so next we'll move on with clubs. The Marshfield National Honor Society is continuing their one-on-one tutoring program, and they'll probably be doing that through the end of April. So the end of state testing is usually when they'll stop. And their next event is one that they do annually, and it's in conjunction with the Oregon Department of Human Services. And they're a huge collection of donated clothes for children. What they do every year is, they'll be working with our advanced carpentry team to, that's the wrong page. Carpentry program to build and install shelves and other organizational materials, as well as just organizing all the clothes. They do that every year because every year they get a lot more, and they don't necessarily have the staff to do that. And so that's when our program is able to help and step in and get some of that done. Our Z Club is currently in the process of evaluating applications for their Oregon Community Foundation grant. We'll be able to share the winner with you, hopefully the next meeting I'm here. So yeah, we'll make sure and let you guys know when they're selected. They first have to go to so there's a few rounds of accepting applications. So there's the big one, and then they'll pick out probably 10 from that, and then they'll have to go visit all 10 of those, and then from that they'll also pick their one. So yeah. Next up, I'll be introducing. So next up, I'll be introducing a new fundraiser hosted by the Marshfield Key Club and Z Club. This fundraiser is a silent auction. The silent auction is where all the profit will be split between Together We Rise and Every Child Oregon. These are both 501c3 organizations aiming to uplift and support Oregon foster youth by funding their education, providing school materials, as well as providing resources to new foster parents. The auction will take place on April 15th and will include a spaghetti feed. The clubs have formed a joint committee chaired by Key Club Vice President and Z Club President Kiri Goodson. The committee will oversee and carry out tasks such as reaching out to businesses for donations, as well as coming up with promotional materials to advertise the event. The auction is scheduled for Tuesday, April 18th in Marshfield's Heritage Hall. The time is to be determined. We're still trying to figure that out. So now lastly, some Key Club updates. For Key Club, last Tuesday, the delegate board adopted the new election process drafted by the club's election committee, as well as amending several outdated bylaws pertaining to our election process. That was probably a 3-month process, so we're really happy to have that done now, as March and April is our election time frame for Key Club. And so now in about a month, we'll have a newly elected club officer board, and then at the beginning of every year, or at the beginning of our year, we will have elections for our board of directors, which is a class representative and then a board director. Let's see. Key Club is also planning our Earth Day event right now at our Pirate Park. We plan on having a park cleanup as well as some Earth Day education, and as in tradition, a barbecue to end it all off and to feed the volunteers. On the topic of cleaning up, as spring is on its way and hopefully this cold will leave, the Key Club and Marshfield Science National Honor Society will be bringing back Friday campus cleanups after school. This is something we do every spring, and we do it up until summer. But, as you've all seen from the weather, it's been kind of impossible. During these cleanups, Key Club will be maintaining all the plants, flowers, and other items put in during our Marshfield lawn makeover from 2019 to 2022 is when we finished. And with SNHS, they'll be cleaning up trash found on campus. We love doing this project not only because it keeps our campus beautiful and clean and excellent, but it's also a wonderful opportunity for students to get necessary service hours. Seniors at Marshfield with under a 90% attendance are required to do community service, and that's right when we get a bunch of new members, so it's kind of great because we're able to staff some last-minute projects and see some things come to completion. Okay, and lastly, just a couple updates on our Key Club Food Pantry project. As the project is nearing its last stage before completion, the board has started to reach out to local churches and businesses to find 3 willing programs to host a box on their property. And in very exciting news, our local Builders First Source has informed us that they will be donating all the necessary building materials for the project, and that's about like $600 worth of materials. So we were pretty happy to figure that out. And that all happened when I sent in our quote to get a quote, and 2 days later, I got back a very short email, all in caps, and there was a bunch of abbreviations, so it took me a little bit to figure out what they were trying to say, but I was very happy when I did. The project board, along with club members and our club treasurer, will now begin to create a budget to be allocated in the club's annual budget process for restocking and maintenance for the project. With this, we have also begun drafting long-term care procedures, so Key Clubbers in 10, 15 years from now will know the history behind the project and will know how to properly take care of them. Okay. If no one has any questions, that is it.
Any questions?
The silent auction, is it on April 15th or April 18th?
April 18th.
Okay, great. And tell me where that's at again?
Marshfield Heritage Hall. So if you go into our gym and you take a left, there's a big old sign.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah. And that's open to everybody, and we'll get more info out soon.
Thank you.
Well, Harper, thank you for all you do in the community and the participation and coming here and reporting on it. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next presentation, Marshfield Sun Museum. MJ, are you doing? Who's doing this? Both of you? Okay. Okay. I haven't seen it. MJ, how long's it been since you've been in here? Yeah.
I've never sat up here. I've sat in the
Oh, the old CDL. Okay. Wow, that's a long time.
Mayor, council members, thanks for having me here. My name is Don Blum, and as past president of the Marshfield Sun Association, which is a 501c3, which manages and operates the Marshfield Sun Printing Museum, which is the building which is owned by the city of Coos. So this is our periodic report as to what we've been doing and how things look. I'll read it to you. The year 2022 proved to be a better one for the Marshfield Sun Printing Museum, with visitations up by almost 60% to an above average 264 individuals. People came from many parts of the USA as well as from around the globe. Colombia, Mexico, Turkmenistan, if you can believe that, if you know where that is, Algeria, Spain, Germany, Turkey, and Canada. In addition, we logged over 400 hours of docent and other volunteer hours. Most of the visitors came to experience what it was like to produce a weekly newspaper with the old technology of setting movable type and hand printing the 4-pager from 1891 until 1944. We maintained our regular summer hours, being open 1 to 4 p.m. from Wednesday to Saturday between Memorial Day and Labor Day, and we plan to do the same this summer. Of course, we can host visitors at other times on special arrangement. We hope to revive our Coos County 5th grade school tours in this spring. We are finalizing a first phase of plans to upgrade our exhibit spaces to include a kiosk interpretive sign located directly north of the museum, giving tourists a chance to learn our newspaper story and local history any day of the year. This would link up with Coos Bay's Front Street Improvement Plan now being developed. So that's it.
Thank you.
MJ is going to give you a little more.
So in August of 2022, we had a reporter or writer from the Oregonian write and publish a wonderful article in Oregon Live about the Marshfield Sun Printing Museum. Yeah, sorry about that. And as you can imagine, anything on the internet sort of explodes, and we have a funny feeling that's why we had some visitors from around. And that brought us the board of directors, which I am now on, and then they made me president. So let's do a little bit of history. You notice in 1975 in the article, that's when the building was reopened or became part of the city of Coos Bay, because a couple council members decided we needed to save that building. It was extremely important to our history. And I was one of those council members that swung the vote in favor of it. Well, lo and behold, by 1975, federal government said, oh, we've got a bicentennial year coming up. What does your community have that's 200 years or older? Well, not much, but if you picked something, you got some federal pass-through money, and we picked the Marshfield Sun Museum, well, Marshfield Sun building. It's a very unique 5-sided building built to fit in that lot, and because of that, it was our bicentennial waving the flag, which got it to become a museum. So since I started it, they said, you get to be president this time around. So that's why I'm president of the Marshfield Sun Printing Museum Association. We are not going to go through the internal exhibit proposals that we're doing, because that's more what the museum itself is going to design. What we really wanted to show you, and this is right, is it on? Christine, am I launching missiles in Arizona? That's what I'm no, you are not launching phase 3. Okay, there we go. For those of you, I believe if you have a PDF still, that go ahead and fast forward to probably about page 9. Marshfield Sun Printing Museum has a powerful story and history to tell in a small 5-sided building. It has been awarded the National Registry of Historic Places, and it serves the regional population of the Oregon Coast visitors and from around the world, as Dawn just read off where some of our visitors are from. We are run totally by volunteers, so the hours of operation is kind of limited compared to other larger museums. In the winter months, we're only open when somebody gets a hold of us ahead of time and said, can we come and tour it? And so we try to make ourselves available for that. We recognize that the greater potential of the museum to tell its stories when the doors were closed, and we proposed to provide an exterior kiosk to better serve audiences at all time with exhibit interpretation and location signage, as we've seen the uptick of foot traffic on Front Street, both south of us and north of us, even car traffic both south of us and north of us. We thought, aha, let's do something. So as you can see, a south-facing and a north-facing of a kiosk. And where we'd like to place it is on the lot adjacent to the museum, which is actually owned by the Marshfield Sun Printing Association. And we're going to make sure that it all stays within that lot and not creeping over to the lot to the north, which is a right-of-way, and ODOT would probably scream at us and say, you can't have anything there but a railroad sign or stop sign, which is fine. We'll need to do a little bit of grading to level it out. What we're planning on doing is a concrete stamped and stained path and pad that will lead the visitors to the kiosk, positioning it as best to block that north wind, making it inclusive for south-facing visitors, but not so inclusive that it becomes a shelter. So we are not having an overhanging roof. We are not having a bench as much as we'd like to. We've decided that that's just not going to be worth it. Currently in that location is something that looks like a concrete headstone, but it really is just a marker that says Jesse Luce's lifespan. And we're going to take that piece of marble out of the concrete and embed it into the circular path there. If you can see on the smaller picture on the left, you can see where the pad would be is, again, leaving that right-of-way that's actually the ODOT's, it's the City of Coos Bay, but I think ODOT controls it. We can't really do anything with that. From the north-facing, what you're going to see is the sunburst of the Marshfield Sun. This will be actually, let me go back and talk a little bit about the panels. Interpretive panels are designed as large newspapers in a historic style to resemble the papers produced by the presses in the museum. They will be fabricated and in process and will provide information and major themes of the museum. Not sure if we're going to create the pages, if we might pull something from very unique, not necessarily the sinking of the Titanic, but something that might have been unique history of our area, but we have the ability to bring some stories out on that board. What you're going to see at the very base, underneath the 3 newspaper articles, is actually typeface. Because of this article, we had somebody donate us complete sets of typeface, which we already had, because we have these extra wooden ones. So we're going to make a mold of them and have the different typefaces that have been used within newspaper printing mounted down below. So there's something below, there's reading above. There will be lights in the soffit, so it will be lit from above, not a backlight. Hopefully nothing that anybody can poke a light bulb out. And it will be LED, and it will be run off of a photocell, so only on in the dark. If you can look in the background and see the Super 8 sign and see the stop sign, you'll see 3 or 4, maybe 5 red posts that block the Super 8 parking lot. When you are driving from the north, that is about the only viewpoint of seeing this sign. So the illumination of the sign should not distract a driver, but just give you enough attention. I do know that when it comes to signage, ODOT is really careful about how close anything is, how distracted it will be to a driver. So knowing that we only have that small amount of a view, it's best to just keep Marshfield Sun Printing Museum on that. What we will ask is the wonderful sign that the city redid for us a couple years ago that's on the building existing now on the north side, if we could have it to be moved to that 1/5 panel side of it, so the south, so those walking and driving up from the south will see it there. We don't need to replicate 2 signages, and that would bring them. The colors will be the similar as the side of the building. We're going to use hardy plank rather than cedar boarding. We're going to really try to keep this as life span as long as possible. The location signage, standoff letters, and sunburst logos are all 3-dimensional stainless steel. LED lighting is provided from the soffits, and the structure is oriented to provide, again, summer prevailing wind protection. and just some a little bit of the details of what we're looking at. We've been working with Gary Long Construction to get a nice estimate. Helps that they're my neighbors. Hey, could you do an estimate for us, please? To get an estimate for both the excavating, the concrete padding, building out, framing it out, the hardy plank. We're working with Larry Watson of Wow Arts and Exhibits, who actually has done the design. He will be in charge of creating the panels and the actual signage on the other side. The height, we want to make it high enough, but not so high, again, that it becomes a shelter. And as you can see, only 6 inches out on a soffit for lighting, but if we did 8 inches or more, again, it would become a shelter. We're hoping that it will give the visitors and our visitors to our community much more information about it. Yes, we will have a QR code embedded in one of those panels, because that's the key thing. Also, we are presenting this to both our neighbors who are to the north and south of us, our neighbors in the cultural and historical community, our neighbors in communities south and north of us, to see how wayfaring sites and signs work. This is not a digital reader board. This is actually a solid board with just those. Those panels won't swap out. Any questions? No?
I just want to say thank you to you both and to all the people. I think of Lionel Yost and all the people who have volunteered, and that you're so passionate about this building and this history. And I'm excited to see that there's more traffic on Front Street. That delights me. And ultimately that we will have more information just for the visitor who's walking around. So thank you both truly for all of your efforts.
One of the key things about any museum is A, is your collection secured? B, what you present both internally, which is what we're working on the exhibit displays, as well as externally, and then how do you fit in with the community? And one of the things that we were extremely happy was that our collection has been secured up at the room at Marshfield High School. And that's a big weight off our shoulders, so now we can really focus on making sure the exhibition space, which as you can see in the photograph there, it's captured in time, but we need to sort of give you a little bit more pathways through that capturing in time and a little bit more readability of process where you can do a self-guided tour or a docent type of guided tour. So, thanks.
I think it's great. Thanks, and I look forward to seeing the sign up.
Okay.
Do we have an estimated time frame as to when we might see this?
See when some grants come in and some angel investors come in or donors. No, we're working on that now, and we would like to see that happen this year.
Okay.
And it all just depends on lining it up. And then we do know that when it comes time for actually doing the construction, we would welcome if there's people who want to not actually participate in it, but see what we're doing, because I think some of the processes that we're going to use, and particularly pouring that and stamping it, would be interesting for them to see. And I'm hoping that, you know, we always get look-at-yoos when we have construction projects that, oh, well, come on in the museum tour and let them do their work. So if we do it during the summertime, it would be probably not the days we're open. It could be the days we're open, just how things line up. But we're hoping that this season.
Great.
That's
Thank you.
great.
Couple of things before you go. If you need photos, I did a summer youth program with the city of North Bend this past summer. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I did was a museum hop. And one of the favorite things that the kids that I had in that was the Marshfield Sun Museum. Donna and George did a wonderful job. And I learned a lot of stuff about stuff that we use today in typing, you know, uppercase, lowercase, all that stuff, how that came about. And we are just so privileged in this community to have something so well preserved and people that do have that passion.
The people in the know, knowing that I believe there is another press similar to ours, it's in Carson City, but the art of creating that, you know, now that we're in the digital age, the ones that know that we have it, they're just extremely passionate about it. And the fact that you can do your own movable type, and we do have the ability for you to do your own little printing. And we're working on how to do a little bit more inclusive exhibition and activities. But I fell in love with the building when I was 18, and I decided to save it. So.
Well, I'm sad to say that's the first time I've been in there.
Oh.
And I lived blocks away from there, grew up in downtown. So But like I said, if you need photos for your grant opportunities, I have some fantastic photos I took of those children,
Okay.
and how excited they were
Thank you.
to see
Yeah,
that.
We'll
So-
reach out to you. Thank you.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda is appointments to the Budget Committee. How are we doing this process? Just by verbal? Or, you okay? All right. So we have to consider reappointing two positions, Ali Mangan and Brenda Brecky. We did an interview earlier this afternoon, this evening, I should say. So with that being said, how would the council like to proceed?
I'll move to appoint both candidates to the Coos Bay Budget Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reappoint the two Budget Committee members that have applied. And I was remiss, Carmen, I apologize, he's virtual. Councilor Carmen Matthews is on virtual. So anyway, with that being the case, is there any other discussions on these appointees? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. All right, get back to this. Still got this new system I'm trying to work on, so bear with me. I have enough trouble normally. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, we have a resolution before us. So consider of adoption of Resolution 23-03, amending the city's limited English proficiency plan. Nicole, who's handling this?
Yes, that's me. Thank you. So this is part of the CDBG grant process. The Limited English Proficiency Plan is a document that helps guide us when we potentially encounter those who don't speak English as their first language. It's a plan that needs to be modified regularly because it's based upon census numbers. If our population exceeds a certain threshold, then we need to provide translation services in different manners. That can be, verbal translation, or it could be written. So we need to update that plan as the census numbers come out. Because we are going back for another CDBG grant, it's crucial we do that at this point in time so we're ready for that process. So what's before you is an updated plan based on the most recent census data.
Any questions for Nicole? And this is probably something you said it's going to be coming back to us on an annual basis.
I mean, we should. Best
Should,
practice, we should do that.
Okay.
It's definitely going to be required for certain federal grants.
Okay. So council, how would you like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 23-03, repealing Resolution 21-07, and adopting an updated limited English proficiency plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 2303, repealing Resolution 2107. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Next, oh my gosh, hold on a second. Wow. I think it's easier just to do this. All right, next item is consideration for adoption, Resolution 2304, formally adopting the 2023 Coos County Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. Chief Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to apologize for the lack of a PowerPoint presentation.
I know, I'm very disappointed.
I just didn't think I'd have enough time to do it justice. So
Okay.
I'll just read what I've prepared. The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 and the regulations contained in 44 CFR 201 require that jurisdictions maintain an approved natural hazard mitigation plan in order to receive federal funding for mitigation projects. The intent of the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan is to address natural hazards and their impacts, primarily to reduce or alleviate the loss of life or property. Hazards to Coos County include coastal erosion, drought, earthquake, flood, landslides, tsunami, wildfire, windstorms, and other winter storms. Mitigation actions often include improving infrastructure such as bridges or critical facilities. The City of Coos Bay has participated in the development and the adoption of a county-wide multi-jurisdictional plan that meets the federal requirements and provides direction in the effort to develop community resiliency for known potential hazards. the 2016 Coos County the 2016 Coos County Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan is the most recent and expired on September 12th of 2021. About 3 years ago, in 2020, Coos County, in conjunction with DLCD, 2 port districts, 2 hospitals, 1 drainage district, and 7 incorporated cities within Coos County began work on the multi-jurisdictional plan update. This updated natural hazard mitigation plan has been approved by FEMA and is now ready to be considered for adoption by Coos County and the participating local jurisdictions. The full natural hazard mitigation plan is available on the city website for those who would like to read it. I believe it's 717 pages long. Therefore, no PowerPoint on that either. Therefore, if it pleases the council, staff would ask that you consider adoption of the 2023 Coos County Hazard Mitigation Plan through ordinance.
So have all the other agencies acted on this and adopted it?
I believe several have adopted it. There are still a couple jurisdictions that have not yet got it in front of their boards.
So how do you interact with each other? I mean, do you oversee the whole thing, Chief, or?
I participate. So 2020, it took us roughly 3 years, a lot longer than normal because of a lot of it was through virtual meetings, which slowed the process considerably. DLCD, through a grant, was able to essentially spearhead those meetings with the county's emergency management, and we were mostly a participant. So we'd work on a draft. We would consider, has anything changed since the last one? What are some of the things that we're working on, some mitigation projects? A lot of it had to do with code development. Are we trying to keep critical infrastructure outside of tsunami zones or floodplains? Are we building back where we know there are threats, whether it's landslides or things like that? Any new critical infrastructure, are we requiring that they are reinforced to withstand a certain amount of shaking of an earthquake, et cetera? So those are the kinds of things we consider.
So if there's an incident, how is there something set in that automatically goes out to every jurisdiction or the ones that are involved in this to respond in a certain way, or how does that work?
No, the mitigation planning is really more of it's preparation. So like, again, I said, mostly through development of plans or policies or codes or ordinances that limit the damage so that we're not putting things that are really important in danger. But then there's also some post-disaster funding. So the last one I can think of off the top of my head is there was some area, Red Dyke area, where the dike breached. FEMA was able to step in and provide some reconstruction, but then we didn't rebuild back in that same spot. So they provided some funding, bought out some of the properties that were there with the condition that we do not rebuild in those areas. That's an example of a post-disaster mitigation.
Perfect. All right, thanks for the explanation. We're going to have to read the 76 page? 700?
717 pages, yeah.
All right, thank you. I kind of tuned out after 70 whatever, not 100.
So it's about as long as your PowerPoints.
Yeah.
All right, council, how would you like to proceed?
I move we adopt Resolution 23-04, formally adopting the 2023 Coos County Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution 23-04. Any other comments?
I do have a question.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm going to say this correctly. How will this tie into the work that we're doing with the county? We just recently had that meeting with the county in North Bend in terms of
The estuary plan.
Thank you, the estuary plan. How does this, or is it involved in it at all? Good luck. It wasn't a great question, so go for it.
I wasn't involved in that meeting, and so I really don't know what the estuary plan would entail. Maybe somebody else can help me out with that one.
I think Jim, were we dialing a friend?
Sure, Jane or Roger.
Well, I will say that the Coos Bay Estuary Management Plan, even the work that's being undertaken, won't change policies. It only updates the plan as to the ease of reading, correcting some spelling, and updating resources.
Right now.
Correct. So no work, no policies have been changed. Down the road, should that change, it may affect the mitigation plan.
Thank you, Roger.
All right. Any other questions for any staff on this? All right. Hearing none, I'll call for the question on Resolution 2304. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Next item is regarding the proposed no parking zones north and south on JPM Properties LLC on 2nd Street. Who's handling this? Jennifer, all right.
So I have this, and I'm going to go right into the PowerPoint as soon as Christine pulls it up.
700
Might not
pages?
be to the level of, I'm sorry?
700 pages worth?
No, it's very short. I'm sorry, Chief. Okay. So tonight, we're going to discuss the potential for some new parking zones along South 2nd Street between Ingersoll and Johnson. So we're going to talk about what the issue is. We're going to give you an overview of the site. We're going to talk about the design exception that's been submitted by the applicant, and then we're going to give you our staff recommendation. So the issue is we have a application in for a private commercial building that will house up to 6 tenants. Due to the constraints of the site, and I'll show you that here in just a minute, the proposed parking will cause vehicles to back onto South 2nd Street. That backing on to South 2nd Street for commercial development is prohibited by our code. The applicant is recommending a design exception to allow vehicles to back onto the street, and they have submitted some findings which we'll discuss here in just a few moments. Per the municipal code, alteration or creation of no parking zones must be approved by council through a resolution. That's why we're here. So here's the site. It's on South 2nd. It's right now a parking lot, and it's between Ingersoll and Johnson Avenue. So the design exception request that was submitted by the applicant is stating that the speed limit along South 2nd is 25 miles per hour. Per an AASHTO manual, and AASHTO is a safety transportation manual, it's widely recognized. The stopping distance going 25 miles per hour is 155 feet. The applicant is stating that there is vision clearance. So generally, staff agrees with everything that's in there, with the issue that there is 2 areas of curbing north and south of the proposed parking lot. Let's see if I can. So here and then here. This is about 40 feet and this is about 35 feet. If there's cars parked there, they're not going to have that line of sight. So this is a close-up of the proposed development. You see the gray shaded area is the building, and then you got the parking area. So staff is recommending that we accept the design exception if we can stripe these 2 areas, a total of 75 feet, as no parking. I said stripe, I should say paint the curbing. So currently we have this application for this 6-tenant commercial building. We haven't issued approvals or otherwise until after today, and we get direction from council. But we did send a letter to the neighborhood, and we told them about this project. We told them that staff was going to work with council, and we may consider striping these as no parking zones. And then we requested their feedback by March 17th. So if council agrees with staff to approve the design exception with the recommendation of creating 2 new parking zones, no actions needed tonight. A resolution will be brought back to council for approval at the April 4th meeting, and this will establish the 2 new parking zones. Another thing that you may want to consider is directing staff to revise the municipal code such that it's a staff decision, not an approved council resolution that establishes or alters no parking zones for future. That.
So this is more informational for this evening, correct, on this? And they'll come back to us?
Well, this is informational, but it will come back to you if you want to consider the no parking zones. If you
Yeah.
don't want to consider the no parking zones, then staff is recommending we deny the design exception.
Okay, council, how do you feel? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. So you said there's no backing up out of commercial area, is that correct?
That's
On
correct.
Second Street? So there's diagonal parking on Second Street now, and there's a lot of backing up, right?
New code, or newer code. That's what it says today. I do not know when that parking diagonal.
So
parking
diagonal
is.
parking would not be allowed on a commercial street any longer?
Well, this is for a commercial development. It does not specifically say on-street parking.
No, that's right. On-street parking still,
Yeah.
it's allowed. And you don't have that obstruction of view that you have when the parking
Gotcha.
lot's inside private property.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, I'm not opposed to it. I'd like to move forward on it, but I'm not sure how the rest of the council feels. So discussion on it?
Can you give me a landmark?
Yeah, this will
Courtesy
help.
Pontiac?
It's
So,
the old courtesy.
Yes, it is the old Courtesy Pontiac parking lot. It's the lot in between that and WorkSource Oregon.
Jennifer, you said that you reached out to a residence, and did you get any feedback?
not yet. We sent the letter on last week, and we gave them to March 17th.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, did you ask her if she'd gotten any feedback?
Yeah, they sent the letter out last week, and they have a deadline of March 17th to get information back. How'd I do, Jennifer? Did I get that right?
Did good.
Great.
Are we experiencing any issues with parking along that area yet?
So staff is driven by, there is some on-street parking, but there's not a lot. Google Earth will confirm that. In fact, you can look at this aerial and see too. There is a lot of on-street parking.
All right, council, you want to have this move forward where we allow the no parking that's been suggested?
I'm okay with moving forward.
Okay,
I am.
everyone? Carmen? I can't see you, but.
I'm okay with it.
Okay,
I'm fine with that, but you'll consider any feedback that you get from through the 17th.
If there's any, we'll present it at the April 4th meeting.
Great.
so how do you also feel about the municipal code changing it so that staff can go ahead and make these changes without the council involved? Or do you want to keep that going? Roger?
So my suggestion would be to aid in moving this forward and do requests and reviews to allow staff to make the initial decision. If an applicant wishes to appeal a staff decision, then that would come to the council.
How do we feel about that?
I'm all for streamlining the process.
Okay, everyone else? Carmen?
Michael.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. I think, did we address everything you needed? All right. Next item is city manager's report.
Yes.
PowerPoint?
No PowerPoint.
Wow.
As the council is painfully aware, we have a library that has a failed foundation. The reality is we just don't know how long that building will stay usable. It continues to flex and move, and on occasion we have to go over and we have to make adjustments just so the doors will continue to work. If you've been by lately, you can hear the grinding of the front door that's now giving us issues. The council most recent action was to ask the voters to consider a bond request for the John Topic site. The debt did not meet voter approval. After that, the mayor went on record saying that we would consider other options for consideration. Following that, the Library Steering Committee, along with our architect, looked at 4 different sites and did a site comparison to look at, well, what would it take to build a similar facility on any one of these other, well, it's 3 sites in addition to the Topic site. Those sites included a possible site at Newmark and LeClaire, a site at our current location, and a site on Ocean Boulevard in between downtown and Empire. I'm happy to report to you that that report will be presented to the council at your very next meeting. That site will show you the different locations along with what is considered to be the cost in $20-25. After that, of course, it's not just enough to know what those comparisons are, but how does the public feel about those comparisons? And we'll be getting, and you'll be getting a proposal and a presentation from a survey producer and providing you some advice on maybe how do you gauge what the public is willing to support and how best to ask those questions. So that'll be coming to your very next meeting. In addition, the mayor assisted in providing a grant request or capital funds request from the legislature. That was sent in, requesting $12 million towards that project. In addition, we'll be submitting a similar request to the federal delegation in the next week or so.
And that the federal delegation asked us if we had anything that we could submit, right?
Correct.
Right. And last session, we were ready to be funded until the last minute when we got cut with a lot of other projects at the end.
That's correct.
Okay. Unfortunately. Now, the one that did this analysis was Hacker, the one that did the original architect. So they all sort of the same ones that did the designs, potential designs in these other locations.
Yes, they actually didn't do designs for the new locations. What they did is an apples-to-apples comparison. If they built a similar sized building, let's say at the current site, what would that cost? If they built it on the Claire site, what would that cost? And then also factored in other factors, including land acquisition.
Okay. And so we're going to make sure this is out in the public, and we're going to, multiple times, right, make sure that they're invited, and we'd like to get their feedback on this.
That is correct.
All right. Roger, anything else?
No, that concludes my report.
Wow. Any questions for Roger on this?
I look forward to receiving that report.
Okay, council comments. Stephanie?
Just one, kind of a long one. I attended the coordinated homeless stakeholders meeting today, and very well run. Jennifer Groth was here with her team from RDI, and they did a really great job of focusing down. A 2-hour meeting did not feel like a 2-hour meeting at all. But what they came up with, or what we as stakeholders, and there were about 60 people in the room. Let's see, Roger was there, Nicole was there, Chief Chapinar, and Drew. Yeah, Drew Farmer was also there, Councilor Farmer. And he attended yesterday as well. So they held 2 this week. One was in Coquille and the one today was in North Bend. Vision statements. They will be creating a vision statement with the information that they received. Things like restoring our community. We offer a hand up, not a handout. Community that cares for all its members. To be treated not as a detriment to the community. Those are things that each table came up with. But it basically drilled down on the goals, some simple goals for about 3 to 9 months, and then where do we want to be in 5 years? And I think that this is going to help in putting that strategic plan together and maybe streamlining some of the things that are happening in our community and actually getting that focused. Also, Andrew Brainerd was announced as the new assistant today. He has been hired to help be the boots on the ground person here and coordinate with stakeholders and RDI. So it's moving forward. We're a little bit behind, but it is moving forward. And so that is part of that pilot project that the County of Coos, City of Coos Bay, and City of North Bend are part of. One of 8 pilot projects in the state to try and build a strategic plan to deal with housing and homeless issues.
And that was that $1 million grant, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so those aren't our dollars, those are dollars that were awarded to us.
And it's over the course of 3 years, so we're not spending $1 million building something that's not going to be sustainable. We're building a plan to make it sustainable.
Great, thank you.
Anything else, Stephanie?
No, that's it.
All right, Rob?
So when you have a brother who's a firefighter, all his firefighting brothers become your brothers as well, whether you want them to or not. And I just want to recognize one of those individuals tonight. Lieutenant Doug Vetter is celebrating 30 years as a city employee. Doug was an intern and volunteer firefighter with the Coos Bay Fire Department for 3 years before hired as a full-time firefighter engineer in March of 1993. Doug was promoted to the rank of lieutenant in 1996 and has been a productive member of the fire department throughout his career. Doug has received several awards over the years, including the Commendation for Excellence Emergency Medical Services from the Oregon Health Authority in 1995. Doug is an EMT intermediate and is part of the Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team. He is a Marshfield High School graduate, class of 1987, and has a bachelor's degree from Oregon State University. One of his flaws. Doug has been active in the community coaching baseball and soccer. He has been a referee for Southern Oregon High School basketball for nearly 25 years. Doug officially retired from PERS at the end of December 2021, but has continued working for the fire department as a contractual employee. His post-retirement contract will end in June. When not working, Doug enjoys fishing, camping, and spending time at the family farm with his wife Mindy and their 3 boys. The city and fire department, and obviously the city council, would like to express our sincere gratitude to Doug for his many years of service to our community and honor him as he celebrates this significant milestone.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Where is he? We didn't get to embarrass him tonight, Chief? Okay, all righty.
He's watching TV.
He's watching TV.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right, Lucinda.
I just wanted to give an update. We had our first kickoff meeting for the wayfinding signage. That's the signage in downtown Coos Bay. And there are 3 signs. And we had a really robust conversation about opportunities to move into the new world, I suppose, with updated technology. And so I think we've had many conversations here about the fact that those signs are really outdated. And when they were first purchased, unfortunately, they're not weather resistant or weatherproof. And so it was a great conversation about if we could have 3 new signs, what would they look like? And so Councilor Kilmer mentioned, let's make sure it's a touch screen. So if I'm in front of the Visitor and Conventions Bureau, I can see the restaurants and the businesses around that area. And we also talked about that in all 3 locations. And so I think it was a 38-minute meeting, and basically we got what we wanted accomplished. And I think the goal is that, and I'm going to thank Chelsea and Nicole, because we really put it on them to do the research for new signage. And the hope is that we can fund these 3 signs by using our urban renewal dollars and perhaps some grants going forward. And I think our goal was also to try to get this project done this year, if at all possible. So we had representation from the Downtown Association. We had 3 representatives from City Council, which means typically it's a passion project if you've got that many councilors on it. So I think it...
even a community at large person.
Yes, and even a community at large person. So I'm really excited, and we'll be excited when this project's done. So thanks, Chelsea. That's all I have.
All right, Carmen.
All right. I just wanted to chime in. I didn't say it during the comments, but Marshfield Sun Printing Museum, I'm really excited to see that they're joining the efforts to revitalize Front Street and bring that whole area up to the attention that it deserves. And it's just really good to see all that energy going into making use of all of the traffic that's coming through. So I applaud all the volunteers on what they're working on hard with that, and I think it's really cool. So the next thing, I was alerted to something called the Energy Resiliency Planning grant that's coming up through the Department of Energy and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. There's a grant out for basically just for planning, not necessarily for infrastructure at this point in time, but setting up resiliency plans for grid and power supply in the case of emergencies. And the fire chief's presentation kind of reminded me that I wanted to put a bug into people's ear about that and see if that's something we would want to approach. There's a webinar for that on April 11th that I'd like to check out if anybody else would be interested in. Applications are due for May 19th, and this is for municipalities and counties and such. And so I think it would be something that's very useful. I know right now through the water board, we're kind of thinking about what's going to happen in terms of with longer power outages, what happens at the actual water board facility for workers and such. There's power backup for the pumps and such for the actual water supply side of things, but just for organizational issues and trying to keep the power and the lights on so people can continue to work is important. So got me thinking about that. And then, of course, this came along, and I think it's something that we should really focus on in terms of resiliency planning. And other than that, I'm excited for the library discussion. There's been a lot of information that's been coming through to all the people in the meeting there, and a lot of great ideas. And I hope people engage with this information in terms of the public. I know we all will be, but getting the public to see all the different numbers and why we made the initial decision that we did, and see what people think about the different options, and hopefully we can figure out something that we can all move forward with. Whatever will actually move forward. So it'll be really exciting to see that process, and I hope that there's plenty of engagement from the public. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Carmen. Just to continue on with the library, we went out for bond issue. The voters were not pleased with our selection, so that's led us to this process. So we've been working hard, not just myself, I'm probably the least amount, but you have the library board and the steering committee and the staff involved in trying to find some locations that might be acceptable and come up with a figure because we are really behind. When I was elected in 2016, we had 5 years. We're past that time frame. We're on borrowed time, and we need to do something quickly and make a decision. So hopefully we will get some public input to come in here and give us some direction on which way they'd like to go. That's what this is about. And so it's time to, give us a direction and so we can pursue that. So anyway, hope to have a good turnout at our next council meeting on the 21st. The other thing, talking about some maybe needed upgrading, is I was walking the other day along the asphalt path along the bay from down the boardwalk there, and I saw some painted areas, and I think they're painted white because it looks like it's falling off or sloughing off. So we had this issue and problem on part of that dike area before, so my radar goes up, and I'm concerned, are we going to run into the same issue there? And I looked over, and I see the dirt falling in, and so it's going to undermine part of that process. And so I'm asking the question.
So I know staff has notified the port of the issue, and that's on our agenda when we meet with the port director and commission chair later this month.
Great.
I believe on the 23rd.
All right. I think you're right. Okay. Next item is I want to thank the staff and going out and getting it done. I don't know how often you've been down there, but the boardwalk, as you go, the main steps you go up, and it was we had put riprap underneath, right? Because it had failed and it had sunk down, and all that brick is brand new and all redone, and it's really nice. So great, thank you so much. That's great.
And the holes for the flagpoles and the buildings.
Flagpoles,
sorry,
right here.
quiet.
Flagpole holes, and so.
Sorry.
It's all right. But so I see that the holes are being done for the new flagpoles and the other ones are down. So I think that's going to be done. And then I also saw some lighting that were, when the other flags were up, that's going to be there. So it's all moving forward. And those are some of our goals that we have talked about. And the last thing that I want to mention is that this Saturday between 1 and 3, there's a cleanup at John Toplitz Park. I will be there, and I think some other counselors, and I also know some staff will be there. So I look forward to having everyone there. And I want to thank the group that does this, regularly. I think it's the second week of every month. They're doing one park or another. John Toplitz has been done, and North Bend has been done. So I want to thank this group, and I'm glad I'm going to be able to participate this time. So that's it.
I have one more thing to say.
Go ahead.
Forgive me, I was remiss in reminding everyone that this weekend is the South Coast Clam Bake Music Festival. This event has been in our community and is a passion project and a labor of love for a number of our citizens. It brings visitors from out of the area. The event starts off with a kickoff on Thursday with a warm-up of the bands at the Mill Casino, and then there are a variety of different bands Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, starting from like 10 in the morning and going all the way till midnight. And I'd also like to thank the other hoteliers as well. Each hotel who participated has donated rooms to make sure that we can host all of the bands. And again, this is another example of a great community event, and it's so nice to see these events coming back. So if you're interested, you can purchase tickets at Cocoa Gifts or online. I think you can go to their website. But if you're not out cleaning the park, if you want to stay dry, I would encourage everyone to attend the Jazz Festival.
You could still clean parks and still attend Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night and Sunday night.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you so much. There's no Urban Renewal Agency meeting, so I'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting for this evening. Thank you for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, Carmen.